I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be along. Yeah, at least I hope and pray that I'll, but today I'm just a bill.
Good morning, Pioneer Valley. Welcome to the debut broadcast of the Liberal Oasis radio show. I am your host, Bill Scher, blogger at liberaloasis.com, where this show will also be netcast and podcast. And you may also know me from my blogging at Campaign for America's Future at ourfuture.org. Although, requisite disclaimer, the opinions expressed here today are mine and mine alone, not the organization's. Thank you, HMP. Thank you, Chris Collins, for making this broadcast happen. And let's get right to it. For this show, we will be looking back at the top political news of the week, breaking it down, ferreting out the real truth, and seeing what we can do about the constant misleading that we get from our politicians and their enablers in the mainstream media. This week, the most eye-popping news, of course, is George Bush's audacious attempt to equate Iraq and Vietnam after years of pushing back on liberals' warning that Iraq was going to be a Vietnam-style quagmire, but backed into a corner with dwindling popular support. He then went for the Hail Mary and said, you know what, maybe Iraq is like Vietnam, and that's why we should stay forever. Why don't we play a clip of that, Chris?
The price of America's withdrawal was paid by millions of innocent citizens whose agonies would add to our vocabulary new terms like boat people, re-education camps, and killing fields.
Now, if you've been listening to WHMP and Air America or other liberal talk radio throughout the course of the week, you already know how historically ridiculous that analogy is. So I won't bother you with the factual takedown here. More important, I think, for how do we handle this, how do we respond to this, is trying to discern why would he make such a crazy, whacked-out argument. And I think the answer is twofold. Number one, this is a lame duck president who is at about 30% or lower in the polls. His bully pulpit is shrunk. He cannot easily command headlines the way that he used to. He is now having to share space on the front pages with various presidential candidates and so forth. So to commandeer the attention of the media, he feels almost obligated to make the most moonbat, wacko, crazy argument possible to get their attention. This Vietnam analogy was emailed out to the press the day before. They were so proud of themselves. They were so excited about it. They wanted the media to know, we think this is really, really big news. And they got what they asked for. So it was a way to commandeer the stage again. That's just tactical. More deeply, it's a reminder how committed this president, this conservative movement is to permanently occupying Iraq and that region. I remember back in 2004, leading up to the election, I would talk to various folks who would say, you know, George Bush and Karl Rove, they're so devious. They're going to have some pullback. They're going to withdraw troops before the election because they know the war is unpopular and that would be a way to stay in power. And I would always say, you're not getting the big picture here. You know, as political and as crass and as underhanded as they have been, they did not enter Iraq solely to remain in power. Give them a small amount of credit here. They have business they want to get done. They want to stay in Iraq because they want to stay in Iraq. They have geopolitical desires. They have a vision of the world where stabilization is wholly dependent upon American military might, not based on global interdependence. And they are committed to that regardless of what it does to their poll numbers, regardless of what it does to their party's prospect in 2008. So this speech This Vietnam speech this past Wednesday was designed to dig in their heels and make a broad, visionary, strategic argument for staying forever, for not saying, gee, this isn't going so well, let's change course, which is a logical thing to do. When you see a strategy not working, you change the strategy. They're fundamentally saying it doesn't matter if Iraq is going badly. You know, this is actually in sync with a ad campaign from a group called Freedom March, which is being fronted by our good old friend Ari Fleischer, the quintessential propagandist. And one of these ads, it literally says on the caption in the ad, "They attacked us." They attacked us. Just they. Because this is part of their strategy to conflate. This is a very fractured part of the world, the Middle East. There are all sorts of different players with competing agendas. But what the neoconservatives are doing is conflating it all into one brew. It's just they. It's just the brown people. It's just the ragheads. They all want to get us. And therefore, it doesn't matter if Iraq is going poorly. It doesn't matter if the strategy isn't working quite like we expected it would. We are obligated to stay because we are in this so-called World War III, or World War IV, as some of them like to call it. So as Bush says in his Vietnam speech, if you pull out, all these disaster things are going to happen, like in Vietnam, as if genocide happened because we pulled out, not that destabilization occurred because we went in, because we tried to impose a political government of our choosing on a people that did not want it. That is the true lesson of Vietnam that is being played out on the streets of Iraq. But they cannot, the Bush and his conservative allies cannot let that logic to take hold if they want this to last beyond Bush's administration, which is the plan.